We should be live now, although I can't see it yet. We should be able to see it in a sec. It should be popping up. And as soon as I see it, yes, I have confirmation. We are live. We are Waveform Mountain. We are live from YouTube for the first time.
Oh yeah, that's right. We've never done a live from YouTube.
We have not.
We're figuring it out.
We are figuring out. This is our fancy new graphic and everything too. I'm Jon.
I'm Candace.
I thought you'd get it. We are.
There's just a lag. We're Waveform Mountain. Jon's my dad. I'm his daughter, and we have a band, and it's called Waveform Mountain, and we just released a song called Exhale. It's 10 minutes long, and personally, it's my favorite song, kind of by far. Which I don't think Dad agrees. I think he likes a lot of our songs, but I like a lot of our songs too. But Exhale is like my top favorite song of ours, even though it's 10 minutes long. I think it's awesome, and I'm very proud of it.
No, I absolutely agree. It is my absolute favorite thing. Like you've said before, it's pretty well the favorite thing you've ever made, and I feel kind of the same. I said that on my DIT stream on Monday that, you know, I built a freaking studio and I like that song better than what I've done. Like that's how much I love Exhale. So let's go back. We've got this song, which is a 3-part song that's 10 minutes long, that's cohesive. It's one big complete thing. But let's go back to how it all started. We were working on our album. It had all started with you had an idea for a song that was based on a tarot card because you really liked the imagery of it, and that was The Hermit.
Yeah.
And then we wrote that song. We liked it. We said, let's write our next song. And I said, hey, why don't we just randomly draw tarot cards? And so every one of our songs, we were doing that. And then we got to our 7th song, which was going to become Exhale. And up to that point, Candace had been drawing all of the cards because they own the deck. And
I write the lyrics. And I mean, like, obviously the music is based off of the cards too, but sometimes less. Sometimes you'd already come up with something before.
Well,
whatever. Anyway,
well, I was gonna say, and also, I mean, basically, we live in different cities, and you had the tarot deck, and so I would write some music, or you draw a card, tell me what it was, and then we'd write some music. But this time, I happened to be in Victoria, and I said, and we talked about the idea that I had never drawn one of the cards. Let's see what card we can get. And that was also just at the start of my neurological disorder, and I didn't know what was going wrong with me. My arm wasn't working properly. I was starting to go for tests. It was a bit scary. It was probably...
it was a weird time because it was like you had this shaking thing happening, and we didn't know what was going on, and I'm sure you were about to say this, but my memory is that as you were about to draw the card, you said something like, oh, I'm a little nervous to draw this card. Which is funny because honestly, like, throughout my whole life, you've barely ever expressed anxiety or nervousness. So it's kind of like an unusual thing to hear you say.
Yeah.
And I think we might have said something about the card Death, like not wanting to draw Death. And I was like, don't worry, Death's like a good card. Like, there's basically no bad card in the deck that would like predict anything bad except the Hangman. So just don't draw that.
And then within 2 seconds, I flipped over a card and went, there's the Hangman. And it was right there. And we were like, what?
And Dad just like fell down on the floor. It was honestly very funny. Do you remember that?
I forgot. No, I remember now. Because I was sitting on the floor at the coffee table, and I threw it down and just fell backwards. And but
we were kind of laughing and kind of like, fuck.
Well, and the other thing that was really interesting about this song was the fact that as we were getting to write each song, I mean, the way we kind of approached it was we're just writing a bunch of songs, and maybe we'll have an album when we're done. And so when I'd go to do the music, I'd you know, think about what the meaning of that card was and what kind of, you know, like for the Hangman. I mean, obviously it to me, the meaning is kind of a person has put themselves in a pretty horrible situation trying to achieve something, but then ended up being far worse than they could have imagined. But at the end of it, you learn and grow, and something comes out of it. Like, but it's kind of that because in the Hangman, the Hangman is hanging upside down with his one leg across the other leg, and my understanding is that person is supposed to have put himself there, right? It's not like they're being
Yeah.
crucified or something. It's like they've chosen to be this way. But even before we drew the card and decided what song we were going to write, or what, how we were going to write it, I had said the next song we do, I really want to do like a 10-minute long ish 3-part, morphing, changing song. And we didn't know what, that was sort of my concept, was to do this long song, but we didn't know what it was going to be based on.
Yeah, exactly. I think like, so when we drew it, it was kind of like, well, I was kind of stressed too, because I don't know, I was stressed about what was going on with you, Dad, and then when that
Yeah.
happened, I was like, what the fuck? Like, we were laughing, but I think we were also like, that felt like a weirdly bad omen. But then what ended up happening was that somehow out of that, we wrote like our all-time favorite song, favorite thing we've ever created, and both of us have done a shit ton of creative
Stuff
things
we've made,
in our
made
lives.
things. You've been in acting, singing, performing, creating productions yourself. I've
Yeah,
built miniature terrain and painted things and
yeah,
renovated houses and built a studio
yeah,
and written some music now. And yeah, I mean, this song, it's interesting because one of the things I was thinking about talking about Exhale and what it's like to me, I mean, is that something I really dislike in music is super repetitive music.
mm,
But the interesting thing is Exhale is kind of based on very repetitive parts throughout.
mm.
So the beginning starts with that weird arpeggiated sort of blah, 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 blah sound that starts going wow, boom, 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 wow, boom, 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 wow. Right? It's just sort of like this. To me, it sounds almost like an engine running.
Yeah,
It sounds kind of dark. It sounds kind of dark and moody, and it goes through the whole thing. And it's really only 2 chords, right? Like it's very repetitive. It's like 4 bars of one chord and then 2 bars of another chord, and so it's
hmm,
a 6-bar pattern, which is odd in itself. But I feel like somehow we managed to make it never sound like it's too repetitive, right? It feels like it's constantly changing and moving, and that's partly your lyrics. It's partly the guitar solo. It's partly just the other parts that I added in there to be the
yeah,
layers.
yeah. And I think too, like, so when Dad sent along like almost the whole song written, like the way we write is that Dad writes all, like, creates the music, basically the background music, and then I've every time written the lyrics and the melody on top of that. And sometimes I already had some lyrics, sometimes I had nothing by the time I got what Dad sent me. And when he sent me this, it was like pretty much very close to done, like compared to other ones. And I was so excited about it because I loved it. But I think one of the reasons that it didn't end up repetitive, or that it has some sort of flow to it, is because I didn't feel like restricted by following any sort of like structure of what a song is, because it was like, well, it's already 10 minutes long. It's already like 3 sections that are kind of connected but are also like totally different sounding.
Yeah,
And so I ended up writing this. It was like maybe the most enjoyable writing process I've had, because I just sat here and played it over and over, and like, I don't know, like, just like kept kept singing, which I don't normally do. Usually I'm much more analytical about it. Like, usually I'm like, okay, what would this melody be? What would this be? And this, it was more like, honestly, it just felt like a sensory thing, or like stimming or
right.
something. Like, I was just like singing over and over and over to the thing until I had this like kind of writing the lyrics and the melody at the same time, and it changes throughout the song, and it doesn't really have any like, yeah, structure. There's like kind of vaguely verses and choruses, but not really. Like, it's, anyways, so I think it's partly just that we broke all the rules of songwriting, and so we were just doing whatever the fuck we wanted, and I think maybe that's what made it better.
I think that's
Like,
huge, and I think that, I mean, I had an inspiration song for what I was trying, not really the, like, I wasn't trying to copy the song, but basically I was had listened to, sometime that summer I'd re-listened to Alan Parsons' I, Robot, and
mm,
the beginning of that song starts with a pattern that morphs and changes, and then the drums come up and the beat gets going, and then the lead line comes on top, and then the guitar comes in, and it's very repetitive, but it has these layers, and that's kind of what I was thinking of when I thought of writing it. And I also did a thing where I restricted. Normally, I use all, like I was going around finding sounds on all the keyboards that I own, trying to find the best sounds for different parts. And on this song, I said I'm going to try and write everything with virtual instruments. These virtual instruments I own, that I'll do a plug for Applied Acoustic Systems, because it's their software. Everything except the drums, which were some of my analog drums, and another drum software I have, were all from that company. And I thought I'm going to just use their products because I think they sound really cool. And yeah, and I don't know if you remember, like, I don't remember what time of the week it was. It feels like it was the middle of the week, like a Wednesday or something, when I started writing.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, I'm going to start writing it today. And about 2 hours later, I went, oh my God, I didn't want to send you this till it was done, but I've got 2 sections done. And I was just like, oh my God, I love this thing. And you and Seb both were just really excited by it. And then I managed to finish the end either that day or the next day. I had the whole structure down, and I don't think really much changed other than adding the guitar layers on and then the mixing of it, and a few little tweaks here and there. But that was kind of amazing. So
yeah.
I think the other thing I wanted to talk about, and I've set this up so I could show it, is that when we were writing the album, I mean, I own a 1978 Roland vocoder, and I was so keen to find somewhere to use this vocoder on every song. We got to use a vocoder.
Yeah.
We got to use the vocoder.
Dad was obsessed with using vocoder on this album. Like it was like over and over. And in the end, well, there was like, Dad had a big push for like having like spoken things in the album, and for so long I was like, that's so horrible. And then we actually ended up having a spoken bridge in the Empress.
Oh, that's true.
Because I thought it was my idea. Like, I was like, oh my God, what if we do this like really weird thing? And then Dad was like, I've been saying this the whole time.
I forgot about
like,
that.
Oh yeah.
I forgot about the spoken thing. I was thinking more. I didn't care if we used the vocoder on guitar or on keyboards with voice. I didn't want it to be a robot sound per se. It's just that I wanted to find a way to use the textures that vocoder does. So let me switch over to Studio One here and see if it's still open. So this is the okay, I've got to open the software here so I can see. So this is the actual recording. This song, I think, has something like 53 tracks. Like, it's crazy because there's all these parts. It's sort of part 1, part 2, part 3. But this is the beginning of the first section. So let's play that back for, I'm assuming anybody watching has hopefully heard the premiere, but or listen to the song now. But if not, go listen to the song, and then or afterwards go listen to the song and compare this. But this is just the coming out of the intro into the first verse. I'll play it as it sounds first.
Inside the dragon's den again, hot metal and rusty fear. It's getting hard to imagine when we were anywhere but here.
So the long delay. I mean, the delay, just that delay is going on throughout there, and part of it has this dark, moody sound to it. But I really want to make the vocals sound a bit eerie. And originally I kind of overdid it, but in behind there we have this actually software-based vocoder part, and it's basically I duplicated Candace's singing. And then I took their singing and I put it into Studio One's built-in vocoder, and this is what it's actually sounding like in the background with just the vocoder. Scary. So as it comes in here, so that's going on behind the vocals here. So when I'll unsolo it here.
It's getting hard to imagine.
So you can barely hear it in the song, when you're listening to it, you might not even notice it, but it adds this. I just loved how that added this eerie quality to the voice there, but didn't end up making it sound stupid.
Yeah,
right.
But the first time you sent it to
oh,
me,
I know it was huge. I had it turned way up
so
there.
Funny. I think something that's been really good is like Dad and Seb, or I mean, me and Dad, and also Seb, a lot of the time, all had a lot of input on all of the songs, and so I think like something we did really well together is that like we all would be like, that's weird. Like if someone did something like they're famously inside the band in one take in one song, I sang a line and we thought I was just like, yeah, we're good, but then we realized later that I had sang the line, why like that.
That was
like
so funny.
It wasn't like, why did you hide for so long? It was like, why did you hide?
Yeah.
So anyway, Seb caught that one. My point is we all caught each other's kind of hilarious, like, I don't know, mistakes is the right word,
Yeah.
but just like choices that then we were like, what have we done? And I think something that we caught with Dad was the first time he sent this with the vocoder. It was like my voice was like 100% goblin. Like it sounded like
I'll switch.
It was just like, holy shit, what is happening? Like,
Yeah.
and so, but now the toned down version, I think it turned out so cool. I'm so happy that part is in it.
Well, if I just go to the vocals there, for example, if I go to the whole vocals, I'll tell you what it sounded like. I'll just ride this fader here because it's probably on automatic. But
yeah,
I think I had
I
had this one up. I had it like this.
Hot metal and rusty feet.
I think it was more than that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not quite the same, anyways, because I've changed the mix and
Yeah.
EQ'd differently.
Anyways,
and everything else.
It was funny.
So that was kind of cool. And then the other thing that was kind of an interesting part of the writing process is as we were doing the transition from the first section to the second section, and I'll play that in a second here. Basically, I was I'd written the first section, had this mono synth going on in the background as this repeating thing. It had the weird it was actually a modular synth drum sound. It wasn't even a real drum sound. It was kind of like thunk a chunk, and it wasn't real drums. And I thought, well, as it goes into the second section, I'm going to have a different drum pattern. So I tied in a drum pattern, I sped it up. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to write the second thing. Let's find a vintage key sound and just get a chord progression. And I just came up with this sort of do. And I thought, okay, that's kind of cool. What will I layer onto it? And then I played it back and I went, oh, I don't need to layer anything onto this. It sounds great. So let's play that transition from, I'm going to play it through because why not? We can live stream as long as we want until you have to go.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take the solo off of here. So here's the transition from the first section to the second. I guess I wasn't showing it. I was just playing it.
Yeah.
I thought I was showing it that time. So yeah, I mean, just the way that, it's funny even when I listen back to it, I often don't notice the second section drums coming up. Like you got the first section drums and the second section drums are building up underneath them till they're both equal. Then the first section just drops off and it's like, where did this beat come from? Where did and the chords come in? And to me, that's pretty well my favorite thing I wrote on the whole album in terms of movements or creative changes. I mean, it's just for one little section, like that's what I mean. Like just that change is the way it changed. It it was a surprise to me that I created that, because I didn't expect to make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a question about, like, I don't know, I guess just sort of, how did you come up with the lyrics? Like, I get the lyrics make sense to me, like the sections, how they fit together, the idea of not being able to breathe and then being able to breathe, like exhaling, like the whole three sections. And the fact that it's the Hangman was kind of, oh, it's a dark song, right? Like, we knew it was going to be based on the Hangman, but I just wondered
Yeah.
where you came up with that.
Okay, so yeah, I think that my concept for the song must have come after you had sent me the music, because
Probably
I
that
can't
makes sense.
imagine that it worked out, that it just fit so well. I don't know. I think I came up with it after. To me, I wrote the song when I was 31, and I'm 33 now, but at the time I felt I was like, I was doing a lot of counseling and a lot of processing. The pandemic, like, was a big, I mean, this whole album came just out of the pandemic. Like, it was just when
Yeah.
we could start spending time together again. And for me, the pandemic lined up with finishing my undergrad degree, for the first time ever not being actively in theater. I'm still
Right.
doing some of it, but it was like the first time I felt like I'd like paused in my life, really. And a bunch of shit came up for me that I think was hard stuff that I'd experienced in my teens and 20s, that I had not looked at or processed at all. I mean, it's kind of why the album is called Processing,
Yeah.
because we thought it was fun to have like a computery theme, but also literally for me, like this album just happened to be very cathartic, and also writing about a lot of things that I was literally processing.
And on top of that,
uh
if I interrupt,
and
on top of
yeah,
that, besides the fact that I was getting Parkinson's at that time and we didn't know it, you also had three grandparents die in the same 2-year span,
yeah, I had
which
three
is,
grandparents die. My uncle Mike died,
yeah, well,
which was
yeah.
rough. There a lot of people died. It was rough. Like, there was a lot going on. There were other things that happened too. It was a hard time. And so, but in a lot of ways also a time where I finally had the space to feel things. Like, it was, which that didn't really, I don't know. I just hadn't, not that, like, you,
You've
if
just
you
been
knew
too
me, you'd be like,
busy.
of course you're feeling
Yeah,
things the
yeah,
whole
but
time. I'm like a sensitive person, but like, I think older things that I hadn't been processing.
and to
Anyways,
process your feelings, because
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you can
So,
feel things without recognizing what you're processing.
and I was having this feeling at the time, because by the time we wrote Exhale, it was September. I had been doing this like sort of emotional work for up a year and a half maybe, and I was starting to feel like relief, and I was starting to feel a sense of freedom. And freedom's weird, but like a lightness. Like, I was
Yeah.
starting to feel that, and I was feeling really like I was associating it with coming into my 30s. Like, I did have that experience that some people talk about, of like hitting 30 and just being like, why do I care about any of the things I've been caring about? Like, who, like, so who cares if so and so is mad at me? Like, what the fuck? So it just, there was like a groundedness that came with my 30s. And so, because the song was in three sections, God, it took me so long to get to this. Because the song was in three sections, I decided to write about a section about my teens, quote unquote, about my 20s, and about my 30s, which had only been a year and a bit. But what I specifically felt characterized those was like, I felt like in my teens I was experiencing a lot of shitty things, and kind of early 20s. And then I went, and so that's kind of like the first section, which is like inside the dragon's den. Like, it's kind of like, it's, I don't know, I mean, it sounds very dramatic. It's
It's it's
hyperbole,
it's
obviously,
it's
but
hugely dramatic, and that's what makes me love the song so much. Is
yeah,
that
yeah.
the lyrics are filled with such drama and emotion, that really fit the lyrics, that really fit the music. The lyrics really fit the tone of the music as it goes through. That's what's
Yeah,
cool
it was
about it.
just lucky. Like, it just worked out so well. So the first section to me is kind of like experiencing the harm, and then the second section, which felt like characterized my 20s, is basically just being like in fucking denial, and not connecting with yourself, and not connecting with other people very authentically. I remember, as a side note, there's a line in the second section that says, if they hurt you, just lower that bar.
Yes.
And what I meant by that was like, when I was in my 20s, if someone hurt me, I didn't think like, I didn't let myself get upset with him. I just was like, oh, I don't deserve any better than this. So I just lowered the
Right.
bar of my expectations so that I didn't have to be hurt.
Yeah.
But Dad called me one time and was
I
like,
didn't understand that line.
it's
Yeah.
like, do you know that lowering the bar is like bad? Like you should raise the bar? And I was like, yeah, Dad, that's the point. That's what I was trying to say. Anyways, pretty depressing. And then the third section is this relief. What I think you asked me was about a little bit about the breathing thing. And I think what's really cool is that in section 1, I write about being in like a smoky environment, and I think there's a line about being smothered or
it's
something.
Yeah, just keep talking. I'll remember it while you're
choked until we're grown.
Yeah, choked until we're grown. Yeah, it's yeah.
And then and so there's kind of this like being in a dragon's den, being stuck with the dragon and not being able to breathe. Second section, you're out of the dragon's den. The first line
is take a breath.
Take a breath of fresh air and hold it. Count the seconds, just 10 more years. And then because I sort of feel like I was holding my breath for 10 years in some ways. Like and then the third section says exhale in it.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is that I didn't do any of that on purpose. Like
really? Like I didn't know that. I never really knew that.
I guess that was just like, I guess breathing must have been subconsciously connected to my understanding of my experiences or something. And we didn't name the song Exhale until after. Like when we were writing all the songs, we just named them the tarot card. We called this the Hangman for forever. And it was only after we'd written the entire song that I was like, oh, this song should be called Exhale because that's like the main thing at the end. And even at that time, I'd only put together that there was the part that said,
take a breath of fresh
air and hold it. And then at the end in the third section, it says exhale, which is like cool. And I hadn't even then thought about the fact that the first whole
choked
section
until you're
about
grown.
Not being able to breathe.
I know.
It's totally an accident.
I know. Well, that's amazing. Okay, I gotta get you to. I gotta get you to tell another story because I think these are worth it. When people recognize the greatness of our music, and come flocking to find our YouTube channel. They'll appreciate knowing this, and so I'll throw this one to you. I'll give you the prompt. So after we wrote this song, I mean, it's a dark song, right? Like on the album, in terms of dark content, I would say this and The Tower, which is one of our second single we released.
And I Want It Back.
I Want It Back isn't quite as dark though. Like it's
really
it's okay. It's a negative. It comes from I guess it is in a sense, but I feel that this song has a moodiness to it that's there's quite a mood to I Want It Back too. Oh, I can't wait till you guys can hear I Want It Back. 2 weeks till our album comes out, Friday, May 3rd. Full album. You can hear the other 6 songs. You can hear them all in sequence, how they're supposed to go. I'm so excited. But okay, so you wrote this song. Yeah. It's a very dark song. Tell me the story about what your mom said to you after she'd heard this song.
I don't remember exactly what she said, but I know that she listened to Exhale, and the first message she sent me was like something along the lines of like, "Are you okay?" or like, "I'm worried about you," or like, we should talk like about this, and you can explain this to me. And it's like, I mean, it's just really funny because I probably would have had that reaction too, to be honest.
Well, if I hadn't been involved in writing it with you and had seen it through the process, I probably would have had the same. Because a couple times I thought, well, what else don't I know about my daughter's childhood, teenage years? Because you don't live your kids' lives, you don't experience all their stuff. You know a bunch of stuff that they do or did or whatever. So anyways, I just thought that was so classic. So it's like,
I know, it's so funny.
Are you okay?
And it's like, I think you did say that to
me. That's the way you told it to me, was like, Peeps, are you okay?
Yeah, Peeps, are you okay? It's like, yeah, actually I'm great. Actually, writing the song is like marks me coming out of that, like it's good. But yeah, no, I mean, it's funny because it's like writing music is like both, in some ways the song fits, like it feels like it's as exactly as dramatic as it needs to be for some of the hard things and feelings I went through. And in other ways, I'm like, obviously I wasn't in a dragon's den. Like, yes, I was fine. Like, I had food, I had shelter, like,
You experienced
but
teenagehood as we all do, and you had some pretty negative aspects in it. Like, and
I think
it's hard to tell listening to the song if, as I said, I think that other people listening to this could relate it to maybe being a little kid, could relate it to, I mean, it depends on what their experience was. I saw some relation to that.
Yeah, like, and to me, it's like, it's not really about any one thing. I mean, there's also just like one thing that is kind of solid for me is that another thing in the lyrics that was intentional is that the first section talks in the plural, like about we are we're here but we're alone.
Right, yes.
And then the second section is I, and then the final section is like
no, it's the other way around. Me. You.
It's like and
second section is you.
To me, like, that really is about my siblings. Like, and that's when I get like kind of emotional. But I think there were a lot of pains that like the four of us had as kids, some of them to do with like being queer, being closeted, being in a fucked up society in terms of like gendered expectations, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And because we were all going through that pain actively, I think, not to speak for them, but in a lot of ways, we each had to go through our own shit, and we didn't connect over it when we were younger. Like, we were isolated from each other in a way that is so not true now, because I think the four of us are extremely close now, like closer than most people ever get to be with their siblings. Like, I'm so lucky. They're like my favorite people in the world.
Well, and also you all came into your own identities at different rates and times. You're different ages, but also you don't, just because at some point in time you'll figure out that you're queer. It doesn't, for somebody it could be at 26, for somebody it could be at 14, right?
Oh my God, exactly.
And you could be the older one figuring out at 14, and the younger one could figure out later, and all that stuff. So
like, it's just it's all over the place, but it's cool because I think, to me, realizing that I have community and I have other people who have struggled in similar ways that I've struggled, and now we can connect over it because now we're not like experiencing the harm so directly that we're able to like come together again. So the first section the first section being like having the alone is like,
it's very repetitive and sad.
And then the end ends with I'm not alone, I'm not alone, I'm not alone. And then the very last line is we're not alone. And I'm like, I just love my siblings so much. And so that part always makes you cry, because I'm just like, so lucky to have them.
Okay, two more parts of the song I want to talk about, play and talk about. And
good.
And
like, no,
as I said, it was really cool writing that second section and having that dropout of everything and that openness. And I think on the album I tended to layer and layer, other than maybe our first song and The Tower. They didn't have tons of layers, but I started layering synthesizer parts, arpeggiations, and blending them together, and that's part of our sound. And that was the first time I'd sort of done something that was much more open. But then as the song transitions from the second section to the third section, let me just play how that goes. This is something I had the most trouble with in this song, but I do love how it came out. So I think I'm right about there. So let's see. So this is the actual beginning of the transition.
Sometimes it's way too much.
I'm going to stop there because I don't want to play the whole song, but a couple things I didn't really realize. Well, one thing that the big pad that comes in at the end, the big triumphant pad, and you and Seb just loved it. I kept thinking it's not big enough. Like it felt a bit thin to me or something. Now that it's done, it feels great. But the one thing I didn't really notice that was part of that transition is I put in the beats that go bump bump. I started doing that on the video because I put those beats in specifically because they'd be like an echo of what's about to come, because then the drums start becoming dun dun doom dun dun doom.
Yeah.
And I put those in to try and transition. But if you go back in the second section and you listen earlier on, that actually comes in as a beat, I think just as the bridgy sort of part with the guitar comes in. And I didn't know that I subconsciously already had that beat going earlier in the section, and it's like an echo back to it. And on listening to this song 800,000 times, mixing it, and then making the lyric video, and all the times I've heard it, I was quite interested in that. So to me, that was sort of like originally like a weak part of the song to me, was this transition. But I think that as we finalized it and you had me add extra space in there for the transition to happen, which was another change we did, I think that really improved it. I don't know if you have any comments on that, or...
Yeah, no, I'm so glad. I mean, one thing about the ending, I mean, this isn't that transition, but one thing about the ending is that I think the only thing Seb and I asked Dad to change was that he originally had the ending end like in a minor chord, in a minor key, kind of back to what happened at the beginning, but we can get to that in a sec. For that transition, I think that was the last thing we changed on the entire album. Like, and it was like we were pretty much done the whole album, and
and you wanted me to add another 8 bars in there to just, because it felt like section 2 just ended and then it faded into section 3 so quickly.
It felt like the transition from section 1 to section 2 was like enough time to like get into a completely new thing, and section 2 to section 3 was like too abrupt. And I realized that honestly a while before I asked you, because I thought it was like too late to make a change, especially because around that time you were like, let's get the album out, like, come on. And I was trying not
last July
too perfectionisty about it. And then I said, Dad, like, I think we should add this, and you're like, oh yeah, we should. And I was so relieved that you agreed.
Yeah. No, that really added to it. I did. That was the last thing I wanted to play in terms of like parts of the song that, I mean, people can just go listen to the song. It's streaming everywhere now. But parts of the song that when, as someone, if you watch this video and you're hearing us talk about it, you can now go back and listen and sort of hear how this becomes part of the structure. So it's got an intro, which is electronic sounding music, and then it goes into the first section, transition to the second section, transition to the third section, and then it transitions to an ending section. And the ending section is literally just the beginning section repeated, but the tempo was faster, so it didn't quite sound the same. And as Candace pointed out, when I first wrote it, I just made it be in the same key. And therefore, well, I'm not sure it was the exact same key, but it was still in a minor key. It was in a key that fit with the transition out of section 3. And so if I go to that last, actually, I'll play the 2 of them. So if we go to the beginning, you've got that weird arpeggiated or electronic sound in the background. You get the little clicky sounds coming up, and then eventually you get the little arpeggio on top going do 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 do. And that's kind of the whole beat right there. So if we go to the last section, let me find it here as we go to the outro, it'll transition into it.
I am not alone. I am not alone. We're not alone.
You can hear it in the background under that one arpeggio. it's one of my favorite parts of the song is the bookend of the
Yeah.
two sections. And also, I mean, there's more to the ending because there's that do 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 going on,
Yeah.
which isn't at the beginning, and the other sound that's like do 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 do, right?
Yeah.
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 So to me, it really does have this triumphant sort of sound at the end. Like before it was so dark, it ended so dark. It was like this dark song that becomes triumphant and then goes dark again. So
Yeah,
I
Sam
think
and I were like,
I
what
think that's the right.
happened? Like,
I think that's
I
the right
got
call.
happy. And then I was like, we're like, no, stop it. Oh my God.
Anyways, so that was the only other main point I really wanted to say about this song. I mean, really, you know, I'm happy with it. It's like it's neat when you can create something and listen to it a bunch of times and not go, I wish I could have done that better or whatever. Like just go,
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Like, and I think that our excitement for it is so genuine. And I've not yet had a single person listen to this song and say, eh, right. It might not be somebody's type of music, but like the general consensus is it's a great sounding tune, right? So I just
Yeah.
love that. So
Yeah, it's very cool. Well, I
there's
think
my
we told most
exhale.
of our yeah, we told our stories. What did you say?
I said there's my
That's your
exhale.
exhale?
I just took a big
I thought you said that was our tale. I was like,
oh, and that was
no
our tale
pun.
too. That's our tale of exhale. So
Okay, we should wrap up, I think.
we should. I think the only thing else I was thinking of that was interesting about exhale is that when we were trying to decide which songs would be our singles, we thought we might do 4 singles, and then we decided we got sort of some advice that some of your singles should be your main singles. So we said, well, let's put a few other singles in there too that won't be our main ones. We won't kind of focus on them as much. And we said, well, if we're doing all these singles anyways, let's throw Exhale in there. No one puts out a 10-minute long single. But my feeling is that even though it's the last one, even though it was like the extra single we were throwing in, that we've built up to this single, like that we've built up to,
true.
right? Like that. I think this is the of all our singles, this is like the Tower is amazing. The Empress and the Queen is great. Like they're all good. But to me, it was like I didn't get excited about a single release other than we're putting it out until this song was coming out, and I realized how much I love this song and how much I really wanted people to be able to hear it. And I don't care if it's 10 or 50 or 100 people that hear it, but when people get a chance to experience it, I'm just so excited and happy that they did. So
yeah, me too. And it's cool because this is our last time of experiencing putting out a single, and then we just get to put out the album, and then we can and then it's there, and that's so cool because like this whole thing just started because I mean honestly because Dad and I hadn't connected much over the pandemic because the fucking pandemic ruined everything, and it was like a way to hang out and write music, and now we have an album, which is crazy.
Yeah, and I know that we only have a couple concurrent users in our live stream here, but if those of you listening have any questions or anything, throw them in the chat. If we can't probably answer them now unless you chat very quickly, but we can maybe bring them up in our next one. I think we'll probably do a live stream for the album release. Maybe not day of, but maybe after it's been out for a week or something like that. We'll schedule something with a bit more notice so people know. This was we thought of it on Tuesday. I think Wednesday. I was like, oh, let's do a live stream, and I started promoting it. So yeah, that's kind of that's how you don't get people to show up to your live stream is don't tell them about it in advance and don't market it at all.
And make it on a Friday morning when everybody is working or asleep,
right?
Depending.
Or Friday after. It's Friday evening in the UK. Checking our Spotify listeners. We've got our most listeners are in Canada, the US, Mexico, Colombia, Spain. There was one other odd one. I think Croatia.
That's random. How would they?
Yeah, because I advertise wherever I can advertise that we've got an album, and people can randomly find stuff. It's hard to when you're not on playlists and stuff. It's hard to, but they still can. Yeah. Anyways, okay, cool. I guess we'll sign off. Thanks everyone for watching our live stream. and watching the recording. And I hope you enjoyed Exhale, and I hope you listened to our full album, Processing, coming out May 3rd, Friday, 2024. That's 2 weeks from today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
See you, Candace.
We're still here.